Hello friends, Hansen here, and welcome back to Int Media Video Games Analysis YouTube channel. So, before I begin here, I think I need to make a few prefaces. Let you know that some of these takes might be a little out of the pocket. They might be a little off the cuff. But I've just had a lot on my mind today regarding, I think, how Redfall has been received, combined with the state of the Xbox brand. And I kind of just want to just say what I think here. For those of you that don't know, and I don't know how you don't know if you do follow video games, but Redfall, the newest release from Arcane, published by Bethesda, and, well, technically published by Xbox, is the first-party title. It's really the first incubated first-party title that we've seen from Xbox, apart from, well, I should say the first-party incubated title that we've seen from Bethesda since the acquisition has gone through. So this is the first outing. This is their best foot forward, as it were, from the kind of fruits of this deal that's been underway since, what was that, like 2021? Yeah, I think that acquisition was announced in like January, February 2021. I actually don't know off the top of my head. I think that's right though. But I think what I've been feeling, and let me continue to paint the picture. This game has been received as a bad game, and I mean, you can now, personally, I haven't played it yet. I am going to play it. It's actually installing right now. I'm gonna play it and just kind of check it out, because I have a Series S and I have Game Pass, so I have no reason not to check it out. But I do just want to see kind of what's going on there. But nonetheless, I do think that my take here doesn't really need to have experience playing the game, because I think that when it comes to this sort of thing, perception is reality, and that's true for many aspects in life, but especially with this game and with the Xbox brand, I think that this game is going to have this stink now of it's a bad game. I never really expected to believe that. First of all, it's an Arcane game, which I really like Arcane. I think Deathloop, I know it's a little more of a controversial title, but I do think that game is good. I think it's great even. I think Dishonored's great. I haven't played Prey, but I've heard that I've even heard Prey is like low-key the best Arcane game. I've heard people compare certain aspects of it to BioShock, and people say that it's a better game than BioShock, which is, I mean, that's insane, because BioShock is, I mean, that's, in the video game crowd, that game is almost untouchable. People regard that as one of the best games ever made in many ways, but I never anticipated that this game would even be less than great. You know what I'm saying? I think that we had some precursor information that should have, and I think that, like, there were instances where we heard about the 30 frames per second kind of whole debacle once that got announced. Like, that's obviously not a good look. We heard that the game doesn't allow, if you are, let's say you're playing this game with your buddies, or just in a multiplayer lobby, only the host will be able to carry that saved progression into their game. We knew that was a thing before this game came out. Like, we knew these things, so I guess there were some sort of indicators that we should be expecting this game to not be the best Arcane game. But at the very least, I mean, I thought that Xbox would understand that this game needed to be at a certain level of quality. And the fact that it's not, and the fact that it not only isn't at that level of quality, but the fact that it's just bad from what I am hearing. Like, I've heard takes where this game isn't even worth trying out on Game Pass, because you can play all of Arcane's other games on Game Pass, so you should just play those instead. I've heard that take from people about this game. And these are people that I trust and people that I go to for information. And I don't get that. I don't understand how this game this game was released in a state that's just not acceptable. I've seen the performance issues, I've seen the AI problems, I've seen all of these things. And furthermore, this game was delayed out of last year. This game was almost delayed for a full 365 days. So I just don't think I understand what, and I think this is kind of what brings me into the larger topic of conversation that I want to talk about today, which is not just the Xbox brand, but furthermore, how much pressure is now on Bethesda Game Studios, who, if you're not tracking, is in the process of developing Starfield, which is going to be arguably their biggest game yet. Not just, that's what the devs have been saying, like you've heard guys like Todd Howard saying things like that, but I think from an importance standpoint, and from an industry standpoint, and from like a perception standpoint, this game is easily their biggest game now, because the expectations that are riding on it are almost unmeetable. And I hate that for them, because I don't understand how you can have, and maybe this is good that the game is almost like we know in development cycles that the game at this point in development is done. Like, I'm sure Bethesda is just trying to polish this thing and get it to where it needs to be from a quality standpoint. At least I hope that's what they're doing. If they're adding new things to the game at this point, like major things, like that's probably very concerning, but I don't have any indication of that. So I think really what I'm trying to say here is that the Xbox brand is like, the Xbox One era was a low point for Microsoft and a low point for the Xbox brand. But I really feel like this is the lowest it's been, because Redfall in many ways was not just an Arcane game, which we have a certain expectation there that the game's going to be at a good level of quality, but what we also expect, being that this is the first party title incubated after the Bethesda acquisition has gone through, I don't understand the incompetence, I guess is what I'm trying to say, because this move from a first party from Xbox, I mean, dude, like this comes on the tail end of us learning that the ABK, Activision Blizzard King deal probably, well, I shouldn't say that. I should throw my perspective in here that I don't think that deal is over until Microsoft themselves say that it's over and say that they've kind of abandoned that pursuit. Like, I think that deal is, they're going to keep trying to make that happen until like it's not a possibility anymore, especially now, dude. Like, they need a win, and they need something exciting at the very least to add to the conversation here. But I mean, we're coming off the news that like that might not be happening. And then we get the new, well, before that, we found out Redfall is going to be running at 30 frames per second, which they weren't transparent about because I got to keep backing up here. I think about a month and a half ago, Bethesda and Arcane put on a PR event for Redfall where they weren't forthcoming in saying that the game runs at 30 frames per second. And then 2 weeks to 3 weeks later, they come out and say that it is running at 30 frames per second about a month before the game drops. So, you know, like, it's just all of this, like, dude, I don't get it, because it just exudes incompetence on behalf of Xbox. And I don't think there's any other way that you can rationalize that. And I think the larger point that I'm trying to make here is that with Starfield, if Starfield doesn't deliver, and if Starfield doesn't land at, let's say, my metric that I'm kind of guesstimating here, and I'm really trying to like imagine in my mind's eye, is like, it needs to be at a 90 or above in order to be considered a success, I think. Which is that, dude, that, like, in the modern era of video games, that is a feat. That is not easy. And I don't understand how they've put themselves in this position, because if Starfield is like a low 80s, a 70s sort of game, which like that is not outside of the realm of possibility given Fallout 76 and given Xbox's management capabilities that they've proven to us again and again. Like this whole thing exudes incompetence. Like the only real sign of success that you can point to within the Xbox first party, there's maybe a few things, but even these are sort of debatable. I think the only indisputable beacon of success that you can point to after Xbox acquired them is Obsidian. And even then, like, you could argue that like the Outer Worlds, for example, like that's not their game. They had to deal with Private Division to publish that on all consoles and platforms prior to that deal. And you know, since then they've released games like Grounded and also Pentiment, which are great games, and both I've played both extensively. I think they're wonderful. But we haven't seen like a AAA release from them. And I don't really think we need to like dispute if Obsidian is up to snuff. Like I think they're a wonderful team and they have amazing creators on that team, and I don't doubt their capabilities at all. But that's and maybe Forza Horizon, and some aspects of Halo Infinite. I think those are really the only things that people and gamers and players can point to as like the real successful endeavors that Microsoft and Xbox have accomplished. But I mean, even then, like Halo Infinite, dude, is like the conversation about that game. If you just read the conversation and didn't play the game, you would think that game sucks just based off of the live service elements. And Forza Horizon, that's a playground game. I have no doubt that game is great. I haven't played it personally, but even then, I mean, that's like a driving open world game. That's not what people are coming to a first party for necessarily. It's definitely a core component, I think, of what can make a first party great. Like you see that with PlayStation and Gran Turismo, and even in a lesser extent and in a very different capacity, you see that with Mario Kart and like with Nintendo and things like that. But I don't like this. And at the end of the day, if Starfield doesn't execute, and if Starfield doesn't deliver, and if people don't get not just what they're looking for, but really like people are already placing these sort of impossible expectations on BGS and on Todd and on the team about delivering this, like it's kind of like Cyberpunk levels of hype where it's like, oh dude, this game's gonna blow your mind, like, and to some extent they've already kind of hampered themselves with like the 1,000 Planets sort of conversation when the game was first unveiled in that gameplay demo back in summer of 2022. But this is gonna, like, if that game doesn't deliver, and I really think if that game isn't at that metric of quality that they're looking for, and like I said, like I think that's, you gotta get, the Starfield has to be a 90 plus in order to be considered a success. And that's like on sources like Metacritic or OpenCritic, you know, things like that, like these review aggregator sites. Like if it's not generally considered like a critical smash it and a commercial smash it, dude, people are gonna get fired, people are gonna lose their jobs, people's reputations are gonna go down the toilet, you know what I mean? Like, I don't like that, you know? And like I certainly think that I certainly feel the most bad for Bethesda Game Studios and for Todd, because like games like that and a developer like that, like they were just kind of caught up in the ebb and flow of the acquisition when Xbox acquired ZeniMax. They are being looked to now to deliver almost this impossible product. And while I do think that Starfield is going to be a great game, and I don't really think, you know, Fallout 76 was for sure like a black eye, but I don't think we have any reason to doubt that Starfield isn't going to be a good game at the very least. But at the same time, like I feel for the people that have done this to themselves, and I don't know. I have a lot of love for the Xbox brand. I mean, when I was a kid, like Xbox was one of the first platforms I played on. Like when I was growing up, like I'm talking like elementary school, middle school, like I played on Xbox and GameCube. Those were the two, like the original Xbox and the GameCube, and then that eventually turned into like the GameCube and the Xbox 360. And like I have a lot of love for that platform, and I have a lot of love for those IP and those games. And like, you know, I've been like a PlayStation gamer now for probably, I'll say, since early high school for me, since I was like 14 to 15 years old. And even after all that time, like I recently got an Xbox Series S just to kind of see what was going on in that ecosystem. And like Xbox, it felt like home in playing those games, messing around with that software, you know, going back and seeing all of my old achievements that I got when I was, you know, a child. It really brought back a lot of good feelings. And I have a lot of love for this brand. I'm tired of them giving me reasons to not be excited to play there, and I'm tired of them not only just being content with being a third place kind of competitor in this console landscape. Like I don't really understand why they've put themselves in this position. And I mean, it really is up to Starfield to be like a great game. And if it's not, I mean, I think you got to look to guys like Matt Booty and say, all right, dude, like what's going on? You gotta go to the top. You gotta go to Phil and say, like, Phil, like, how are you not delivering? And yeah, I don't know, because it's been so two-sided. Like, they've had great games. Like, they've had the Sea of Thieves. They've had the Hi-Fi Rushes. You know what I mean? They've had those games that have totally delivered. And then they've had games like Redfall, which is easily their most anticipated game from the Bethesda acquisition, from the Bethesda bag yet. And it's a total dud. It's a bad game, apparently. And I'll be sure to play it and see what I think, but I'm not expecting really anything. I'm just kind of going to do my due diligence as an analyst and as a player at this point. But yeah, it's not looking good. I do think and this is kind of the last thing I'm going to say about Starfield. Like, I think that Starfield, I am almost more excited to play it now, because I am really just excited to see what it is from a quality standpoint, and to see if it's something that can really help get Xbox out of this hole, because they need it. And I'm just intrigued to see how this whole thing plays out, because it's a big deal. So that's all I've got here, fellas. You know, sorry to be a little more doom and gloom. You know, if you watch my content, you know that I like to keep it upbeat. I like to have humor. I like to have that kind of stuff. But I just, you know, at the end of the day, I'm a video games analyst, and I have to do my due diligence and not just assessing and analyzing games themselves, but the larger industry. And I don't like what I'm seeing here. And at the end of the day, I just got to call it how I see it, even if that is negative, and even if it is in some way contributing to maybe the console war, and on a more macro scale, the culture war. But I wanted to throw my 2 cents here, and I wanted to give my take. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you guys are having a great week out there. Solid Tuesday. Hope you guys are playing some good games and keeping it real. But anyways, that's all I've got, guys. Be sure to give me your feedback. And as always, this is Hansen with It Media out.